You remember that first moment, don't you? The air in the room thickens, heavy with unspoken demands. You're 6, maybe 7, sitting at the kitchen table, your small hands gripping a crayon that's already worn down from hours of forced focus. Outside, the other kids scream with laughter, chasing shadows in the fading sunlight, their voices a wild symphony of freedom. But you're here, eyes burning, piecing together numbers or oars that feel like chains. Your mother's sigh lingers in the air like smoke, disappointment, wrapped in exhaustion. You're the big one, she says, her voice a quiet blade. You have helped act your age. And just like that, the playground fades. Play becomes peril, innocence, a luxury you can't afford. You feel it now, even as an adult, that echo in your chest, a hollow ache where laughter should live. You've grown up too fast, haven't you? Not in the heroic sense, the tales we tell of prodigies who conquer worlds young. No, this is quieter, more insidious. This is the child who became parent, confident, fixer, before their bones had time to stretch. You navigated adult storms with a child's map, your nervous system rewired in the crucible of necessity. And here's the paradox that claws at you. You've survived, thrived, even on the surface. Promotions, relationships that look stable from afar, a facade of composure that fools the world. But inside, a perpetual stranger in your own skin. You crave the simplicity you skipped, yet fear it like a trap door to collapse. Imagine your psyche as an ancient oak, roots twisted deep into rocky soil from the start. No gentle nurturing rain, just relentless wind, shaping you prematurely strong. You learned early vulnerability is danger, dependence is betrayal, joy is distraction from duty. So you armored up precocious words from a tiny mouth, responsibilities that bent your spine, emotional intuition sharpened not for play, but for predicting the next parental quake, dad's rage, mom's withdrawal, the family's fragile equilibrium resting on your unsteady shoulders. This isn't hyperbole, it's your neurology speaking. Your brain, in its infant plasticity, forsook the neural highways of carefree exploration for express lanes of hypervigilance. Mirror neurons, fired not in games of pretend, but in mimicking adult stoicism, the prefrontal cortex, that seat of executive control, overdeveloped while your limbic system, the raw heart of emotion, starved for safety. You became a miniature sentinel, scanning horizons for threats that arrived as moods, addictions, or absences. Childhood wasn't a garden, it was a battlefield where you enlisted at dawn. And the cost? Oh, it's woven into your every breath. You watch friends slip into spontaneity, a spontaneous road trip, a belly laugh at absurdity, and something in you recoils. Not envy, exactly, but a grief too deep for words. You've forgotten how to play, truly play, not the performative kind you muster for others, but the unbridled, messy immersion where time dissolves. Your inner child isn't dead. She's frozen, a statue in the foyer of your adulthood, arms outstretched for a hug that never came. Let me paint it vivid for you. Picture evenings alone in your apartment now, the city's hum, a distant lullaby. You scroll feeds of people your age, dancing at weddings, wrestling with puppies, weeping openly at sunsets, and your throat tightens. Not because you lack success, your resume gleams like polished steel, but because success came at the price of wonder. You traded hopscotch for homework, forts for facades, tantrums for tactical silence. The world sees your poise, your insight beyond years, and applauds. So mature, they say. If only they knew. Maturity forced is maturity mourned. This paradox is your secret war. Outwardly, you're the reliable one, the one who plans the group trip, mediates the fights, shoulders the burdens without a flinch. Inwardly, a voice whispers, "When is it my turn?" You've mastered adaptation. Polyvagal theory would call it a dorsal vagal shutdown, masked as ventral vagal engagement. But at what expense? Your attachment style. Avoidant, laced with anxious undercurrents, forever bracing for the abandonment that shaped you. Your self concept, a mosaic of achievements hiding cracks of unworthiness. Feel that resonance? It's validation, not judgment. You're not broken, you're battle tested. The child who grew up too fast isn't a flaw, it's a survival script etched in your cells. But scripts can be rewritten if you dare peek behind the curtain. You've carried this load solo for decades, muscles aching from invisible weights. What if I told you this precocity was never your destiny, but a defense your brilliant mind forged in the dark? Let's linger here in this intimate space. Close your eyes, breathe into the chest where that little one hides. She's there, the girl who dreamed of fairy tales, who collected fireflies in jars of wonder. She's not gone. She's waiting, buried under layers of I should, I must, I can't afford to fail. The paradox stings because it's true. You've outgrown your own youth, yet it haunts you, a ghost demanding reckoning. Now, consider the relational ripple. Friends sense your distance, label you independent or guarded. Lovers pull away, mistaking your self sufficiency for indifference. You give endlessly advice, support, solutions, yet receiving feels like swallowing glass because need was punished early. Asking meant burdening, and you were already the family's unspoken savior. This is the core conflict. You're a master of life's mechanics, but illiterate in its poetry, schedules, flawless, spontaneity, terrifying, intimacy, a minefield where one wrong step detonates old wounds, and yet you persist, a phoenix of premature fire, ashes of playfulness scattered in your wake. But here's the hook that pulls you deeper. This isn't random misfortune. It's an ancient adaptation, hardwired into the human story. Your story, one will unpack, layer by layer, from neural roots to relational thorns, until you see not just the why, but the way through. You felt it in quiet moments driving alone, tears blurring taillights, wondering why joy feels foreign. That's the paradox calling. The child who grew up too fast carries an invisible hourglass, sand of unlived years slipping silently. Turn it over, reclaim what's yours. Stay with me. This journey mirrors your own, slow, revealing, transformative. You've adapted masterfully. Now adapt again, this time toward wholeness. Chapter 2, Archetype Analysis. Defining the precocious survivor. Your psychology is an ancient battlefield, etched not with swords but with silenced cries and stolen sunsets. Welcome to the archetype of the precocious survivor, the child who grew up too fast. This isn't some modern pop psych label, it's a timeless human blueprint, a shadow cast across civilizations, from the street urchins of Dickensian London to the eldest siblings in fractured families today. Picture it symbolically, a sapling forced skyward by firestorm, bark hardening into armor before roots can dream, or a porcelain doll with eyes too wise, limbs rigid from bearing weights no plaything should endure. This archetype embodies the silent theft of childhood innocence, forever trading playful wonder for precocious armor, leaving an eternal echo of unlived youth and relational distress. Let me define it with precision, drawing from the depths of Jungian shadows and attachment theory. The precocious survivor emerges when a child's environment demands adult level emotional labor prematurely, parentification, as psychologists term it. You're not just mature for your age, you're a neural fortress built in the rubble of instability. Family chaos, addiction, divorce, poverty, mental illness forces you into roles unfit for tiny shoulders, mediator between warring parents, emotional regulator for volatile siblings, financial fixer scraping pennies for dinner. Your innocence doesn't erode, it's sacrificed on the altar of survival. Symbolically, you're the phoenix hatched in ash, wings clipped before first flight, condemned to walk among giants. This archetype pulses with duality. Outwardly, the golden child, insightful beyond years, reliable as clockwork, a beacon of composure. Inwardly, a fractured relic, play circuits dormant, vulnerability vaulted away. Advanced terminology illuminates this, its polyvagal dysregulation, masked as hypercompetence. Your ventral vagal pathway, meant for safe connection and co regulation, atrophies while the sympathetic fight flight revs constantly, and dorsal vagal freeze becomes your default armor. Object relations theory calls this the false self, Winnicott's construct, where authentic needs bury under a compliant facade to preserve fragile attachment. But here's the revelation that reorients everything. This behavior is actually an ancient defense mechanism of the nervous system. Eons ago, in hunter gatherer tribes, the early sentinel child scanned for saber-toothed shadows while elders hunted, ensuring clan survival. Your brain, that brilliant adapter, hijacked this primal wiring. When parents faltered, lost in depression's fog, or rage's storm, your amygdala lit up, forging hypervigilant pathways. Neuroplasticity, that double-edged sword, sculpted you. Amygdala hypertrophy for threat detection, prefrontal overdrive for impulse suppression, hippocampus strained from chronic cortisol floods, encoding trauma as normal. Symbolically, envision your psyche as a Victorian greenhouse, forced blooms under artificial light, petals vibrant but roots starved, forever yearning for wild soil. The precocious survivor's hallmarks, emotional precocity, reading moods like tea leaves at age, hyperindependence. I got it is mantra, masking terror of reliance. Suppressed play, leisure feels illicit, guilt shadowing hobbies, and the relational distrust that spine tingling wariness, projecting parental unreliability onto partners, friends. The intellectual credibility demands we ground this in evidence. Bowlby's attachment research pinpoints disorganized attachment. Your caregivers were sources of both comfort and chaos. Imprinting closeness equals peril. Longitudinal studies, like the Minnesota study of risk and adaptation, track these children into adulthood. Higher rates of anxiety disorders, perfectionism, intimacy avoidance. Yet they excel. CEOs, therapists, artists, precocity fueling ambition, but at the cost of burnout's abyss. Delve deeper into the symbolic layers. The archetype manifests as the wounded oracle, prophetic insight born of pain, voice carrying gravitas uncommon in youth. Myths echo this. Athena, born armored from Zeus's head, wisdom weaponized sans infancy's softness, or the biblical Joseph, dream interpreter sold into slavery, precocity his shield against betrayal. Modern parallels abound. Oprah Winfrey, parentified by poverty, or countless latchkey millennials, digital natives raising digital siblings. This isn't pathology, it's evolutionary genius gone awry. Your nervous system, per Purge's polyvagal ladder, defaulted to mobilization, scanning, planning, protecting, bypassing mammalian play states essential for neural integration. Result: a fragmented self. The adult you achieves, but the inner child spectates, arms crossed, whispering, "Is it safe yet?" Consider the relational shadow. Precocious survivors magnetize dynamics, replaying old scripts, attracting needy partners mirroring parental voids, or distancing from clingy equals fearing engulfment. Boundaries blur. Your yes to all stems from early no's unmet. Self worth ties to utility. Lovable only when fixing, invisible when frail. Philosophically, this archetype wrestles Nietzsche's eternal recurrence. Would you relive that accelerated forge, knowing the cost? The spine of unprocessed joy aches here, wonder weaponized into worry, curiosity caged as caution. You've internalized the family's superego, Freud's harsh judge, flogging spontaneity as selfishness. Yet, this analysis isn't condemnation, it's cartography. Recognizing the precocious survivor validates your ingenuity. You didn't choose this. Your system did, brilliantly. Tragic symbolic rituals mark this archetype. The child donning oversized shoes, clomping through adult halls, laughter echoing hollow. Forward momentum beckons. We've named the beast. Now trace its neural forge, how that ancient defense rewired your very cells, turning playgrounds into peril zones. Layers await, from cortisol cascades to mirror neuron maladaptations, unveiling why joy feels like treason. Feel the pull? This archetype isn't your prison, it's your map. The precocious survivor yearns not for erasure, but integration, armor yielding to authentic strength. Your story, ancient as humanity, demands telling, and in telling, reclaim. Chapter 3: The Psychological Foundation. Nervous System Rewiring. Your psychology is an ancient battlefield where the first volleys fired not in adolescence, but in the fragile dawn of childhood. The precocious survivor isn't born, she's forged in the neural forge of necessity, her nervous system rewired from plaything to watchdog before the first permanent teeth emerge. This chapter maps the terrain, three interlocking psychological pillars: parentification trauma, polyvagal dysregulation, and attachment disorganization that underpin the silent theft of innocence. Understand these, and the paradox snaps into focus. Your hypercompetence is a scar tissue masterpiece, beautiful in resilience, brutal in its isolation. Begin with parentification trauma, the cornerstone of premature acceleration, coined by Ivan Bozermani. This occurs when a child inverts the familial hierarchy, assuming parental roles to stabilize chaos. You're the 8-year-old budgeting groceries amid parental addiction, or the 10-year-old therapist absorbing mother's breakdowns while siblings scatter. Neurobiologically, this triggers chronic activation of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HP axis. Cortisol, the stress hormone, floods your developing brain daily, not in spikes, but a relentless. Studies from the Adverse Childhood Experiences ACE framework reveal how this elevates allostatic load. Your hippocampus, vital for memory and context, shrinks under glucocorticoid assault, encoding threats as omnipresent. Meanwhile, the amygdala hypertrophies, turning molehills into mountains. Result? A brain primed for vigilance over vitality, where rest registers as recklessness. Symbolically, imagine your neural architecture as a city rushed into war footing, playgrounds bulldozed for bunkers, joy circuits rerouted to surveillance towers. Longitudinal data from the Dunedin study corroborates parentified children exhibit prefrontal cortex overactivation, executive function on steroids, yielding precocious decision making, but at the expense of emotional flexibility. You've internalized the family's emotional debt, your limbic system collateralized. This isn't mere responsibility, it's trauma bonding via role reversal, where love equals labor, forging an implicit contract, perform or perish. Layer on polyvagal dysregulation, Stephen Porges' revolutionary lens on the autonomic nervous system. Your ventral vagal complex, the mammalian pathway for safety, social engagement, and co regulation, never fully online. Caregivers, unreliable anchors, couldn't model it. Instead, you oscillated between sympathetic mobilization, fight flight, the hypervigilant fixer, and dorsal vagal shutdown, freeze, the stoic suppressor. Picture the polyvagal ladder inverted. You climb to the top rung prematurely, scanning for cues of safety that rarely came. Prosody detection, reading vocal tones for warmth, became threat assessment. Play states, reserved for safer species. Evidence abounds. fMRI scans of adult survivors show blunted ventral vagal tone, correlating with alexithymia, the inability to name emotions, and intimacy aversion. Your body learned. Connection invites collapse. So it armored in hyper independence, mistaking solitude for strength. Metaphorically, you're a submarine periscope in a storm tossed sea, surface breaches risking hull breach. This rewiring manifests daily. Heart rate variability plummets under stress, not rising in resilience as it should. Therapy like Safe and Sound Protocol SSP now targets this, recalibrating auditory nerves to restore ventral access. But yours, hardened early, a fortress against the flood. Finally, disorganized attachment, John Bowlby's grim legacy, refined by Maine and Solomon. Secure bonds build internal working models of trust. Yours fragmented into paradox, caregivers as simultaneous sources of succor and terror. Dad's hugs laced with liquor breath. Mom's praise punctured by panic attacks. This imprints the fearful avoidance style, craving closeness, yet courting distance. The strange situation experiments D subtape. Your prototype. Approach then recoil, eyes darting for escape routes. Cortically, this severs corpus callosum integration, left brain logic, dominates right brain intuition, birthing the head over heart split. Oxytocin pathways, bonding's elixir, misfire, vasopressin surges for self preservation. Harvard's grant study, tracking lives over decades, links this to relational sabotage, high achievers, low intimacy, echoing your archetype. Philosophically, it's existential vertigo, trust as the abyss you peer into, Nietzschean will to power substituting for surrendered vulnerability. These pillars interlock like roots strangling a sapling. Parentification loads the HPA gun. Polyvagal theory pulls the trigger on social shutdown. Attachment theory reloads the chamber. Your dopamine reward system, hijacked for achievement hits, not relational reciprocity. Serotonin stability undermined by chronic uncertainty. Even epigenetics weighs in. ACE induced methylation silences genes for emotional resilience, heritable shadows, unless interrupted. Feel the weight? This battlefield birthed your brilliance. Mirror neurons overtrained on adult mimicry, granting empathic prowess, weaponized for prediction, not presence. Episodic memory favors crises over celebrations. Procedural memory excels at crisis management, yet the cost etches deep. Anhedonia towards simple joys, somatic echoes like chest tightness in crowds, a perpetual on switch barring parasympathetic repose. Consider the philosophical undercurrent. Yourself as a stoic child in Epictetus's mold, controlling internals amid externals gale. But unlike voluntary discipline, yours was conscripted. Advanced constructs like internal family systems, IFS, reveal exiled parts. The playful inner child banished, manager parts. The precocious armor exiled her for safety. This foundation isn't fate, its foundation solid, excavatable. Neuroplasticity persists. BDNF surges with deliberate practice, pruning old vines for new growth. But first, witness the battlefield without shame. Your system didn't fail, it fortified brilliantly. Tragically, we've traced the wiring. Now confront the toll, that invisible grief, the unlived youth's philosophical ache, where precocity devours presence. Layers deepen ahead. Chapter 4: The Emotional Cost. Invisible grief in philosophical way. You carry it like a shadow stitched to your heels, invisible grief. The quiet dirge for a childhood that slipped through your fingers like sand clenched too tight. The precocious survivor pays not in dollars or drama, but in the slow hemorrhage of soul. Unlived youth's echo reverberating through boardrooms and bedrooms alike. This emotional toll isn't fireworks of breakdown, it's the steady erosion of wonder, where precocious armor calcifies into existential isolation. Feel it, that pang when laughter erupts around you, genuine and unearned, while yours taste rehearsed. You've traded the kaleidoscope of play for the monochrome of duty, and the ledger balances in loss. Delve into the anatomy of this invisible grief. Psychologically, it's ambiguous loss, Pauline Boss's term for mourning what's absent yet present. The childhood self, ghosted by necessity. No funeral rites, no closure rituals, just a perpetual half grief, your psyche looping in unresolved attachment. Neurochemically, this manifests as dorsal vagal numbness, endorphin droughts, where joy should flood, leaving in hedonia's desert. You've suppressed the full catastrophe, not just events, but the developmental milestones, skipped. First crushes unindulged, scraped knees unlamented, tree climbing triumphs, uncelebrated. Bowlby's internal working models. Fracture here, your template reads world as taskmaster, scripting self denial as virtue. Symbolically, envision your heart as a grand piano, shrouded in dust sheets, keys struck only for solemn dirges, melodies of mischief muted. The weight compounds in emotional orphaning. Parentified, you became your own caregiver, birthing a relational void where mutual attunement should thrive. Stern's moments of meeting, those dyadic dances of gaze, tone, touch, bypassed you, imprinting self soothing as soul solace. Adult ripple, intimacy aversion, where vulnerability evokes not safety, but the old terror of engulfment or abandonment. Friends marvel at your strength. They miss the marrow deep fatigue, the soul sickness of giving from an emptied well. Philosophically, this toll plunges into the absurd. Camus' Sisyphus eternally rolling duty's boulder uphill, only to watch Play's boulder crumble unused. You've internalized Heidegger's Geworfenheit, thrownness into a world demanding adult Dasein before authentic self emergence. Existential weight crushes, the unlived life, Periellum haunts with what ifs, not of failure, but forfeiture. Why pursue dreams when survival scripted pragmatism? Your ontology warps. Being precedes doing inverted to doing defines being self worth tethered to utility like a balloon to its string. Layer in moral injury, a veteran's wound, transposed to civilian hearth, betraying your own innocence to preserve the family's facade. Ethically, you violated the child's imperative to be, not to do, incurring guilt's slow poison. Kierkegaard's despair of possibility floods, infinite potentials pruned for finite functionality, leaving a self estranged from its telos. Metaphor sharpens it. You're the bonsai tree, meticulously clipped for aesthetic perfection, roots starved, branches forever dwarfed from wild growth. Daily, this grief somaticizes. Chest constriction and quietude, your body protesting unlived vitality. Insomnia's vigil, mind replaying shoots while the inner child whimpers for bedtime stories. Relationships corrode. You project the unreliable parent onto lovers, preemptively withdrawing, ensuring the abandonment you dread. Career zeniths ring hollow, promotions as prick victories, accolades echoing in empty chambers, self compassion an alien tongue. Kristen Neff's research shows parentified adults score lowest, their inner critic, a tyrannical superego flogging frailty as failure. The philosophical heft deepens in temporal dissonance. Time, Bergsonian durée, stolen, fragmented into tasks, sans flow states. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's optimal experience eludes you. Immersion demands surrender, your armor's antithesis. You've mastered Chronos, the clock's tyranny, but Kairos, time's pregnant now moment, remains virginal territory. Ecstatically, this birth's arrested development, Erickson's stages truncated, intimacy versus isolation, unresolved, generativity burdened by unintegrated use. Yet this cost isn't mere ledger, it's alchemy inverted, gold of resilience, transmuted from innocence's lead, but at purity's expense. Jung's shadow swells, repressed pure eternus, the eternal child, ferments into midlife crises of what now, when duty's light Nietzsche whispers, Amor fati, love your fate, but yours demands reckoning first. Evidence anchors the toll. The ACE study links high parentification to 3-5 depression risk, somatic symptom disorders, autoimmune flares, body weeping what psyche suppresses. fMRI illuminates diminished default mode network activity, hampers self-referential joy. Your narrative self, a survivor saga, sans epilogue of delight. This invisible grief philosophically culminates in ontological homesickness, yearning for the self before the survival script, platonic anamnesis reversed, not remembering ideals, but forgetting them under duty's pall. The precocious survivor's true sacrifice, not time, but temporality, the felt aliveness of unlived eras. We've plumbed the ache. Now the precipitating phantom, where does this unexpressed fear actually come from? The core dread animating your armor, twisting daily bread into barbed wire. It beckons. Chapter 5, The Core Fear in Daily Life Complication. Fear of collapse. Fear of collapse. Fear of collapse. It pulses in your veins like a subterranean river, the core dread of the precocious survivor. If I let go, everything crumbles. Not the world precisely, but your world, the fragile edifice you built as a child, brick by hypervigilant brick, to hold the family firmament aloft. Vulnerability, that's the wrecking ball. Play, the seismic shift. Need, the detonator. This fear isn't abstract terror, it's somatic memory, etched when your small self shouldered adult tempests, learning viscerally rest equals ruin, dependence demands disaster. You've armored against it masterfully, but it twists the mundane into minefields. Every simple moment a potential unraveling. Unpack this core fear psychologically. It's abandonment terror, fused with omnipotence delusion, attachment theories, fearful avoidant nightmare. Bowlby termed it separation anxiety writ large. But for you, amplified by parentification's inversion, you weren't just fearing loss, you prevented it becoming the keystone. Neurobiologically, it's the amygdala's siren song, overfiring on cues of slack, a paused to-do list, an unscripted afternoon triggering sympathetic surge. Heart races, palms sweat, mind spirals to catastrophe. If I'm not vigilant, the plates shift, parents relapse, siblings scatter, chaos reigns. Polyvagal lens refines it, ventral safety absent. Your system defaults to mobilization, interpreting leisure as peril. Symbolically, your atlas cradling the globe on child-sized shoulders, flinching at any tremble. The fear manifest as catastrophizing hypervigilance, Beck's cognitive distortion on steroids. One unwashed dish snowballs to household Armageddon, rooted in learned helplessness, reversed. Seligman's dogs froze, you hyperactivated, forging a schema where control equals survival. Object relations add depth. Klein's paranoid schizoid position lingers, splitting self into fixer fragile, projecting bad objects onto Now, witness how this core fear complicates simple daily moments, turning banality into battlegrounds. Let's walk through your day, intimate and unflinching. Morning ritual, the coffee pause. Others sip languidly, scrolling memes, lost in reverie. You, mug in hand, eyes dart, emails unchecked, laundry piling, that work call looming. Fear whispers, delay, and dominoes fall. 5 minutes of stillness, an eternity of exposure. Your body tenses, cortisol spiking, because stillness echoes the mornings you orchestrated breakfast amid parental haze, any lapse and hunger gnawed. Result, joyless jolt, day launched in dread's cockpit. Lunch break, the forbidden reprieve. K-workers banter, heads thrown back in guffaws. You nod, fork midway, mind auditing. Did I confirm the meeting? Follow up on that ite? Spontaneity, a shared joke, impromptu walk triggers the fear. I'm off duty, therefore derelict. Somatic echo, gut clenches, mirroring childhood lunches, wolfed while mediating sibling squabbles. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's flow eludes you. Presence feels like peril, leisure laced with liability. Evening unwind, the couch betrayal. Netflix cues glow invitingly. Friends text game night. Your reply, busy deadlines. Truth, the fear coils, relax, and tomorrow's unprepared. Armor down, arrows fly. Picture it, you perch, remote, gripped like a shield, binge watching while inwardly pacing, mental tabs open on unresolveds, plays phantom pains, board games evoke sibling chaos. You quelled, Laughter risks unbidden tears for unlived fun. Insomnia follows, bed a trampoline of what ifs. Intimate encounters. The touch threshold. A partner's hand lingers gentle, undemanding. Your pulse quickens, not in passion, but prelude to panic. Fear screams. Needing them means collapse if they falter, like mom's unreliable embrace or dad's vanishing acts. You withdraw, physically present, emotionally patrolling, turning pillow talk to problem solving, vulnerability. A chasm where old abandonment yawns. Solo rituals, the bath bomb of boundaries. Soaking, candles flickering, paradise for most. For you, vigilance violation, water lapse, mind lapse at leaks. Bills, health, that friend who might call in crisis. The fear weaponizes solitude. Without external demands, internal ones avalanche. Your inner child peaks. Splash. Daydream, but the sentinel shoves her down. Somatic rebellion, muscles knot, breath shallow, parasympathetic deny. Weekend wildcard, the empty calendar. Horror incarnate. Others hike, brunch, nap. You, frantic filler. Errands, productive projects, anything but void. Fear's logic, undeveloped time, yet undeveloped self. Childhood weekends weren't respites, they were repair shifts, post familial fractures. Now, a blank square evokes existential freefall. Who am I without the role? These complications cascade relationally. Friends label you flaky for bailing on fun, partners distant for dodging depth. Career brilliance marred by burnout, vacations aborted midway, self worth, utility tied, fraying when I the fear's genius. It masquerades as maturity, discipline, while devouring delight. Philosophically, it's Sartre's bad faith, fleeing freedom into facticity's cage, authenticity aborted by anticipatory dread. Heidegger's angst grips, the uncanniness of unstructured being, where potentiality terrifies. Yet this fear, primal as it is, signals the unlived youth's clarion call. Daily life, once battlefield, beckons reclamation. But first, trace its adult tendrils, how childhood sentinels evolve into relational projections, magnetizing replays of old unreliability. The pattern awaits. Chapter 6, Adult Manifestation. Relational Projection. They become adults who orbit intimacy like wary satellites, close enough for gravitational pull, distant enough to evade collision. The precocious survivor's childhood forge tempers relational steel, hyperindependence as holy writ, vulnerability as venom. What began as scanning parental tempests evolves into relational projection, where old unreliability ghosts every bond. You don't just fear collapse, you architect it preemptively, projecting the chaotic caregiver onto lovers, friends, colleagues, ensuring abandonment on your terms. This isn't malice, it's the survival script's echo, your nervous system replaying the primal wound. Trust invites treason. Psychologically, this manifests as transference writ large, for its couch dynamic colonized into daily life. Your internal working models, Bowlby's blueprints, cast partners as the unreliable parent. Mom's withdrawal becomes their busyness. Dad's rages their silences. Object relations theory deepens it. You split the good enough object, your precocious fixer self, versus the bad, needy inner child, projecting the latter outward, magnetizing dynamics that confirm the schema. Neurobiologically, it's mirror neuron overdrive, early mimicry of adult stoicism, now hyper-attunes to micro-betrayals, amygdala flaring on neutral cues like a delayed text. Symbolically, your relationships are funhouse mirrors, warping childhood distortions into adult absurdities. You're the puppeteer and marionette, strings taut from pulling double duty young, giving endlessly, receiving stingily. Intimacy, a tango where you lead solo, steps precise but partnerless. The core paradox amplifies. You crave the co regulation denied in youth, yet sabotage it, polyvagal shutdown cloaked as self sufficiency. Witness the evolution in vivid vignettes. The romantic arena, courtship dazzles, you're insightful, attentive, the perfect catch. But depth dawns, vulnerability beckons, you pivot to problem solver. How was your day? Transmutes to what's stressing you. Let me strategize. Partner feels seen initially, then unseen, your armor eclipsing mutuality. Escalation, they seek emotional reciprocity. You withdraw, projecting parental flakiness. They're pulling away just like mom. Breakup ensues, self fulfilling prophecy intact. Data from Gottman's lab predicts it. Your pursue withdraw cycle, born of parentification, dooms 69 friendships. The utility veil. Bonds thrive on your reliability. Group planner, crisis counselor, but falter on frivolity. Invite to karaoke, you demur, work crunch. Truth, play evokes the unlived child, fear of collapse surging. Friends drift, labeling you intense or unfun, unaware they're cast as the chaotic siblings you stabilized. Projection peaks, their canceled plans replay parental no shows, birthing resentment you intellectualize away. Familial hauntings, siblings lean still, needy echoes of youth, triggering resentment masked as boundaries. Parents age. You resume fixer role, resentment fermenting into relational frost. The irony? You parent them better than you parent yourself. Inner child orphaned anew. Professional projections. Colleagues adore your precocity, mentoring juniors, diffusing meetings, but intimacy aversion chills teams. Promotions come, isolation deepens. You project authority figures as the volatile dad, over preparing to preempt critique, burn out the toll. Daily, this projection somaticizes, gut twists at unanswered calls, chest tightens in arguments, insomnia audits relational ledgers, self concept warps, lovable as utility, dispensable as advanced lens. Schema therapy's self sacrifice mode dominates. Emotional deprivation schema starving authentic connection. Philosophically, it's Levinas's ethical demand unmet. The other's face summons responsibility. You preemptively discharge alone, evading the infinity of true encounter. Buber's I thou dissolves into I it. Transactions. Presence forfeited for protection, yet patterns persist because they worked in childhood. Vigilance preserved equilibrium. Adulthood demands rewrite. Recognize projections not as truth, but trauma residue. IFS unveils protector parts, projecting to shield exiles. Shadow work integrates them. The relational web tightens, but threads can loosen. You've mastered giving. Now receive. Feel the pull towards symptoms dissection. We will now dive into the 6 hidden symptoms you experience every day, blueprints of the archetype in flesh, from fractured bonds to fractured self. Chapter 7, Adult Manifestation. The 6 hidden you might notice it in the mirror's unflinching gaze, a flicker of weariness behind the competent mask, or in the quiet rebellion of your body, shoulders knotted like old ropes, breath perpetually shallow. The precocious survivor doesn't shatter spectacularly. She frays at the seams, her ancient armor now chafing against adult skin. These aren't flaws to fix, but signals from the child who traded wonder for watchfulness. Here, distilled with unflinching precision, are the six hidden symptoms threading through your relationships: career, self worth, boundaries, emotional regulation, and internal identity, each a ghost of unlived youth, each demanding witness. When relationships, the ghost giver syndrome. You pour into bonds like a bottomless well, advice at midnight, shoulders for every storm, yet recoil when the cup turns towards you. Partners call you supportive, then emotionally unavailable. It's projection perfected. Their neediness echoes parental voids, triggering flight. Intimacy stalls at surface, sex without soul merge, dates devolving to debris. Gottman's four horsemen gallop unchecked, criticism of their flakiness, defensiveness, your armor up, stonewalling dorsal shutdown, contempt veiled resentment. Symptom peak, you end relationships preemptively, whispering better alone than abandoned, perpetuating the relational distrust born when your tiny heart learned love's ledger demands labor. 2. Career. The burnout prodigy trap. Promotions cascade, your precocity shines in boardrooms. Strategies sharp as scalpels. Colleagues whisper, natural leader, blind to the cost. Vacations truncated after 3 days, weekends colonized by quick checks. Hypervigilance fuels 80-hour weeks, rest feels like dereliction. Harvard Business Review data mirrors you. High achieving parentified adults hit executive burnout 2x faster, prefrontal overdrive yielding innovation, than implosion. The twist: success hollows, milestones met, but joy absent, like climbing Everest in a straitjacket. You chase the next peak, mistaking motion for meaning, the inner child's playground plea, drowned in dead. 3. Self worth, utility chains. Lovability, contingent on output. Idle moments birth shame spirals. What have I done today? Imposter syndrome. Gnaws, you're the fraud beneath the facade. Achievements discounted as just doing what's needed. Coach self psychology nails it. Narcissistic vulnerability from unmet mirroring. No parental good job for being, only good job for helping. Affirmations ring false. Your superego, internalized family taskmaster, equates worth to work. Somatic echo. Emptiness in the chest, a void where unconditional regard should bloom, leaving you forever proving never arrive. 4. Boundaries, the porous fortress, ironclad externally, no to your whims, yes to all please. You're the friend who drops everything, the colleague covering shifts. Yet internally, boundaries blur. Your mental real estate, rented to others' crises. Saying no evokes guilt's tsunami, replaying childhood's unspoken contract. Your needs after theirs. This diffuse ego boundaries, per veteran, manifests as resentment fermentation, helping hands clenched in quiet fury, relationships imbalance. You deplete, they demand unwitting replays of sibling parent dynamics. The paradox stings. Armor protects you from asking, starves you from refusing. 5. Emotional regulation, the suppressed storm. Rage, grief, glee. Emotions arrive muffled. Elacithymia, your silent gatekeeper. Tears, rare, rationed for privacy. Joy, fleeting, suspect. Under pressure, Sympathetic surge hits irritability snaps at loved ones. Insomnia audits grievances. Polyvagal freeze dominates. Numbness as default, masking limbic floods. When breached, floods overwhelm. Panic attacks from small triggers. Somatic migraines from unvented fury. Vander Kolk's body keeps score. Your regulation, childhood's inheritance, suppressing to stabilize home, now self silencing the soul's symphony. 6. Internal identity. The fractured mosaic. Who are you sans role? The fixer dissolves. What's left? A collage of adaptations, precocious sage, stoic sentinel, buried playful sprite. Dissociation whispers, days blur, self feels spectator to its own life. Jung's persona dominates, true self exiled. IFS reveals manager parts, the armor, exiling the vulnerable child. Identity crises crest midlife. I've achieved everything, why the void? It's the unlived youth's revenge, wonder weaponized into worry, curiosity caged, leaving an internal civil war where authenticity wars with adaptation. These symptoms interweave like kudzu, choking vitality, relationships strain from ghost giving, career plateaus in burnout, self worth wobbles on utility's tightrope. Daily, they somaticize chronic fatigue, gut issues, vagus nerve rebellion, a perpetual hume of. Yet they're not indictments, they're intelligence. Your system's Morse code, signaling time to unlearn the armor. Evidence validates. The Parentification questionnaire correlates these exact patterns with 40% higher anxiety, relational dissatisfaction. FMRI shows fragmented self networks, default mode hyperactivity, replaying survival scripts. Philosophically, it's the divided self, Plato's chariot, reason reining wild horses of emotion, but prematurely yoked. You've mastered being for others, Sartre starved being for self. Witnessing reframes. These aren't you, they're strategies, brilliant in context, obsolete now. Awareness dawns. The first crack in armor. The path illuminates ahead. Not eradication, but dialogue. The first step is speaking to the body, regulating the nervous system, silencing the inner critic through somatic grace. Chapter 8. Awareness and Unlearning. Silencing the inner critic. Pause. Breathe into the spaces between these words, where your body holds the truth your mind has armored against. You've journeyed through the paradox, the archetype, the neural battlefield, the grief, the fear, the symptoms, each layer peeling back the precocious survivor's myth of flawlessness. Now we pivot from dissection to discernment. These aren't personality traits etched in stone, they're coping mechanisms, provisional architectures, your brilliant nervous system erected when the world demanded a child play adult. The inner critic, the tyrannical taskmaster, flogging you with shoulds and failures, isn't your authentic voice. It's the echo of that family superego, the parent's sigh internalized, the sibling's chaos outsourced to your psyche. Awareness isn't self gaslighting into better, it's radical witnessing, a gentle gaze that disarms the armor without demolition. Frame this psychologically with precision. Internal family systems, IFS therapy, Richard Schwartz's map reveals the multiplicity within. Your precocious manager parts the vigilant fixer, the stoic suppressor, protect exiled vulnerabilities, the frozen inner child yearning for play, the enraged adolescent, denied rebellion. These aren't bad habits, they're exile's guardians, Born in parentification's crucible, witnessing means befriending them. Thank you for scanning horizons when no one else did. What are you afraid will happen if you rest? No shaming reframes. No just relax. Platitudes, but curious inquiry, shrinking the critic's volume from megaphone to murmur. Advanced terminology anchors this. Metacognitive awareness, per Wells' model, detaches you from automatic thoughts. Your critic spins narratives. You're lazy if you play, worthless without work, rooted in schema therapy's conditional worth. But schemas are hypotheses, not holy writ. Evidence, rumination focused CBT trials shows 60% symptom drop when observers note thoughts as mind static, not mandates. Neurobiologically, it's prefrontal modulation, the hyperactive dorsolateral PFC, quiets via labeled emotion, naming shame surge, activates insula integration, bridging head heart exile. Symbolically envision your psyche as a Victorian manor, the critic, stern butler, bars drawing room doors to the wild garden child. Awareness picks the lock, not by force, but lantern light footsteps. Unlearning demands embodiment. Intellect alone reinforces dissociation. Somatic experiencing. Peter Levine teaches pendulation. Dip into activation. Chest tightness of should, then titrate to resource. Feet on ground, breath's rhythm. Your polyvagal state shifts, ventral glimpses amid sympathetic hum, rewiring safety cues absent in youth. Practice it now, intimate directive. Close eyes, scan body. Where does critic lodge? Jaw clench, solar plexus knot. Label without judgment, vigilance arising. Ask the part, what old story protects? Often it whispers, chaos if I drop guard. Validate, you kept us alive. This self compassion break Kristen Neff's protocol floods oxytocin, countering cortisol's legacy. Trials confirm. 8 weeks halves self criticism, boost resilience twofold. The inner critic thrives on self gaslighting. I'm just dramatic, perpetuating the false self. Counter with radical acceptance. Lanhan's DBT cornerstone. This is the editant that worked then. Now it chafes. Journal prompts excavate. What did 6-year-old me need instead of armor? Playdates, cuddles, permission to mess, witnessing births, deconstructive validation. Honor the survival genius. You navigated tempest brilliantly while grieving the theft, and it cost your wonder. Philosophically, this echoes Epictetus's dichotomy. Control impressions, not events. Your critic controls via impressions of inadequacy. Awareness reclaims sovereignty. Jungian active imagination dialogues. Parts. Sketch the critic. Ogre, eagle. Converse, shadow integration alchemizes. Precocity's gifts. Insight, resilience, wedded softness, birthing wholeness. Daily unlearning rituals dismantle. Morning metacognition, 5 minutes noting critics' first darts. Busy day ahead, don't slack. Label release, embodied reframes. Mid trigger, hand on heart. This is old protection, not present truth. Polyvagal hacks. Humming, cold face splash. Restore ventral tone, silencing sympathetic screams. Evening parts check in. Manager what protected today. Exile what yearned. Track in ledger, critic decibels drop. Joy flickers emerge. Pitfalls lurk. Perfectionism gaslights. Witnessing is weakness. Reframe. It's courage incarnate. Atlas lowering the globe. Relational mirror. Share vulnerabilities incrementally. I'm learning to rest. It scares me. Magnetizing true reciprocity, eroding distress. Evidence cascades. ACT meta analyses show awareness slashes anxiety. 50% boosts life satisfaction. FMRI lights up. Anterior cingulate thickens. Error monitoring softens to learning. Your brain, plastic phoenix, rewires. This isn't erasure, it's ensemble, conducting the inner orchestra where critic plays second fiddle. Feel the shift. Armor lightens, breath deepens, awareness plants seeds, embodiment waters them, forward beacon glows. The first step is speaking to the body, regulating the nervous system from vagal tones to inner child dialogues. Healing's hearth awaits, actionable, on Deuteronomy in the beginning of healing, actionable paths. Imagine a hearth fire crackling softly in the dead of winter, warmth seeping into bones long chilled, not scorching but steadily thawing. This is healing for the precocious survivor, not a frantic overhaul, but a tender return, honest in its messiness, hopeful in its unfold. You've witnessed the armor, dialogued with the critic. Now, embody the unlearning. Three grounded paths converge here: inner child reparenting, shadow work, and nervous system regulation, each a bridge from survival to sovereignty. These aren't quick fixes or spiritual bypasses, they're somatic sacraments, rewiring the ancient battlefield into fertile ground. Your body, that faithful sentinel, yearns for this dialogue. Let's walk it together, step by embodied step. Begin with inner child reparenting, the heartfelt reweaving of what parentification severed. Psychologically, this counters the emotional orphaning. You become the attuned caregiver your 6 year old self deserved, per John Bradshaw's seminal framework. No grand gestures, just consistent micro rituals of presence. Start daily, sit quietly, eyes closed, hand on heart or belly. Visualize that wide eyed girl, cry on in fist, shoulders hunched under invisible weights. Speak directly, tone warm as fresh bread. I'm here now. You don't have to hold it all. What do you need? Listen without fixing. She might whisper, play or cuddle. Act 5 minutes of forbidden joy, doodling nonsense, swinging at a park, eating ice cream messily. Evidence from reparenting trials. MBR integrated protocols shows 70% reduction in attachment anxiety after 12 weeks. Oxytocin pathways bloom. Somatic anchor. Rock gently. Hum a lullaby, your ventral vagal voice co-regulating her dorsal freeze. Weekly date nights. Buy her a toy. Read picture books aloud. Validate tears without solution. That hurt, and it's okay to feel it now. Pitfall? The manager part panics. Waste of time, but persistence softens it. Symbolically, it's the adult cradling the sapling, soil enriched for wild growth. Feel the resonance? This reclaims unlived youth, grief transmuting to gratitude. Layer in shadow work, Jung's descent into the psyche's underbelly, integrating the precocious survivor's rejected facets. Your shadow? The buried wild child, tantrum thrower, lazy dreamer, needy beggar, exiled for disrupting family equilibrium. Unlearning demands excavation. Journal shadows via active imagination. Prompt: what part of me did I hide to survive? How does it sabotage now? Expect rage at unlived freedom, grief for forfeited fun. Ritualize. Mirror gaze, stare until masks crack. Dialogue aloud. Rageful one, what truth do you hold? Integrate via embodiment, dance the fury, scream into pillows, channeling libido from suppression to expression. Advanced practice. Dreamwork logs amplify shadows, parade in sleep as monsters or clowns. Befriend. What gift do you offer? Often spontaneity, boundary roar, sensual delight. Robert Johnson's inner work protocol structures it. Dialogue, ethical enactment. Say no playfully. Energy, release. Neurobiologically, this thickens the corpus callosum, marrying left logic to right intuition, quelling dissociation. Trials from Zurich's Jung Institute report 55% self cohesion gains, relational distrust dissolving as projections integrate. Philosophically, it's Nietzsche's Amor Fati, embodied embracing the unlived dark birth's golden wholeness. The somatic cornerstone, nerve system regulation, speaking directly to the body, Purges polyvagal map in van der Kolk's trauma wisdom. Your ladder, stuck mid-rung, mobilization, chronic, ventral starved, daily polyvagal hacks recalibrate, 478, breathing, inhale 4, hold 7, exhale 8. Then sympathetic charge, 8 cycles morning, evening, prosodic anchoring. Record your voice reading affirmations and sing song. You're safe to rest. Play during stress. Retuning auditory nerves for safety. Cold exposure. Face dunks or showers. Spike vagal tone. Dismantling freeze. Embodied sequence. Orienting exercise. Scan room slowly, naming green plant, safe, reclaiming agency from hypervigilance. Coherent breathing, 6 breaths minute via app e.g. heart math, boosting heart rate variability, HRV track weekly, aim for 50 millis, safe and sound protocol, SSP, filtered music recalibrating middle ear restores ventral access in 5 days, 80% efficacy. Per studies. Somatic shaking, 5 minutes daily, mimicking animal discharge. Floods endorphins. Polyvagal informed yoga, gentle twists, child's pose. T-trade activation to resourcing. Integrate paths synergistically. Reparent during regulation. Rock the inner child breath by breath. Shadow via reparenting letters. Dear exiled rage. Weekly audit. Where did armor arise? What softened it? Community amplifies. Find therapy circles, IFS certified, trauma focused. Share, I'm learning play. Vulnerability magnets, true mirrors. Honest caveats. Resistance surges. Tears, irritability. This is selfish. Old protectors rebelling. Titrate 5 minutes day starts. Plateaus, psychopaths. Evidence converges. Polyvagal training slashes cortisol 30%. Combined IFS shadow yields 65%. Symptom remission. APA meta-analysis. Your brain's BDNF surges, pruning survival vines. Hope flickers here, not perfection, but presence. The child unfreezes. Wonder stirs. You've survived brilliantly. Now thrive softly. Wholeness beckons, quote, Chapter 10 Conclusion and Affirmation. Wholeness in the final. You've walked this labyrinth with me from the shadowed kitchen table, where crayons became chains, through neural battlefields and relational ghosts, past the critic's whip and into healing's hearth, the precocious survivor, that ancient archetype forged in innocence's silent theft, now stands revealed. Not a curse, but a call. You've traded playful wonder for precocious armor, carrying the eternal echo of unlived youth and relational distrust. Yet here you are, intact, insightful, infinitely capable of reclamation. This isn't the end of your story. It's the pivot where survival yields to sovereignty, where the child who grew up too fast learns to grow down into softness, reflect on the arc we've traced, that core paradox, the outward mastery masking inner orphan, unraveled into parentification's pillars, HPA floods, polyvagal prisons, attachment fractures, the invisible grief weighed heavy, philosophical abysses yawning with unlived kairos, core fear twisted mornings into minefields, projections haunted bonds, symptoms frayed your mosaic self. Awareness cracked the armor, paths reparenting whispers, shadow roars, vagal breaths, lit the way home. Feel it now, the chest loosens, breath deepens, a subtle thaw where frost once reigned. Your nervous system, that loyal sentinel, registers safety not as threat but invitation. Philosophically, this journey echoes the deepest human truths. You've embodied Camus' absurd hero, not defiant rebellion, but lucid recognition. The boulder of duty rolled eternally, yet now you pause. Smile at its weight. Choose moments of Sisyphean joy. Heidegger's thrownness resolves in resoluteness. Dasein no longer fleeing into tasks, but owning its finite wonder. Jung's individuation completes. Shadow wed to persona, to our integrated, mandala self emerging whole, the unlived youth, not lost but latent, fireflies in jars of memory, ready to release. And here, a profound anchor from Carl Jung himself. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not the fixer, not the fortress, but the full spectrum, wise child and wild dreamer, sentinel and Jung knew the precocious survivor's plight, the overdeveloped ego eclipsing the self, yet affirmed its path to gold. Your lifetime's privilege awaits, becoming the one who plays without peril, loves without ledger, rests without ruin. Wholeness isn't erasure of wounds, it's their alchemy. The armor, honorary scars, badges of your ingenuity. Inner child, no longer frozen, but frolicking companion. Relationships, reciprocal rivers, projections dissolved into presence. Career, purpose infused boundaries as allies. Self worth, innate, unearned sunrise. You survived tempests. Now savor sunrises. The goal is not to be fixed, but to become whole. Fractures filled not with gold alone, but kintsugi grace. Cracks as character, story as strength. Envision it vividly. Mornings where coffee savors not scans. Evenings spilling into laughter, unscripted, unarmored. Lovers met in mutual gaze, no ghosts between. Play reclaimed hikes without hustle, dances without duty. Tears as teachers, your body, once battlefield now temple. Breathful, muscles supple, joy somatic. Friends drawn to your depth and delight. Legacy, not just achievements, but authenticity modeled for your own inner kin and perhaps the children who follow. This wholeness ripples outward. You've magnetized chaos, young. Now embody calm, drawing safety circle wide. Forgive the parents, not absolution, but release their voids weren't yours to fill. For honor your precocity, not diminishment, but evolution. Insight plus innocence, the oracle who laughs. Emotional truth bears repeating. You're not behind. Peers normal childhoods, no measure of your majesty. You've traversed realms they glimpsed, empathic oceans, resilient forges, emerging wiser. Grief lingers, let it its love for the lost years. Fear flickers, witness its fading signal. Joy stirs, nurture its native tongue. The final affirmation, intimate as breath, you are whole now. The child returns, arms open, play, rest, need, belong. Carry this into every dawn, a quiet revolution, armor optional, wonder mandatory. If this resonates, the paradox named Paths Illuminated, share it with someone orbiting their own shadows. That friend too, mature, the colleague burning bright. Hit subscribe, not for metrics, but mirrors. More maps for the maze, fellow travelers on wholeness's way. Comment your core echo. What thawed for you, building this hearth communal? You've arrived. Not fixed whole. Welcome home.